Welcome everybody. Got ourselves a little miracle storm spirit. Wanted to give a little mid content to you guys, and also a hero that I've always kind of struggled with. The thing I think you can learn by playing Storm is the fact that this hero has a tough balance between when to farm and when to fight. Because he uses mana to do both, and if you do too much of one, then you struggle at the other. Either you get under-farmed, or your team is stuck without you.
Banana slam jam.
So we're just going to watch Miracle and see exactly what he's doing. He's been playing a decent amount of Storm Spirit on his rank 72 alternate account. So before we get the pitchforks out, you know, it is a rank 72 alternate account. So Storm's definitely a bottle enjoyer. One of the mids that wants to get it as soon as possible. So it looks like he's going like value stat items. Seems like a pretty standard build for mid laners. Probably something you would do every game on Storm. Want to get that bottle before the 2-minute mark. Gets the first creep denied despite using Remnants. Really nice creep aggro there. So something you can do on a hero like Storm is that notice how he wants to get both these creeps, the melee here and the range. So he wants to get them both with the Remnant, but the Remnant can't reach both of them at the same time from here because this one's going to die too early. So he aggroes the Lesh, pulls this creep this way, and then gets them both with the Remnant before that tower shot lands. Very cool little move there. Great hero to practice creep aggro with because you want to move them towards your Remnants, right? And your Remnants are right on top of you. So a little bit of defensive aggro here. This seems like the story for Storm. I would say it's really important to use at least one, usually two, Remnants on the first creep wave. Look how he's really not afraid to use mana at all to farm. I think Storm as a mid laner doesn't really care about the opponent all that much. He prioritizes himself first, and the only time I really see them harassing is when they're remnanting for creeps like this, and then throwing the overload charge at the opponent. And so I've seen this before. Seems pretty consistent amongst all Storm players, and Miracle's been doing it pretty consistently. He is missing a decent amount of CS, though. Uses the Remnant to get the last hit, and then denies himself. So Remnant's just such a cheap spell. 120 damage for 70 mana. So he's just spamming this shit. Too many bottle charges in the mid lane, still. Storm Spirit is probably the biggest beneficiary of the Null Talisman change. He doesn't really have damage issues, he just has mana issues. So making it so spells are cheaper is really important. So the reason why I rewound is because he held his skill point at 3. So I've seen people take a second point in Remnant, I've seen people take a second point in Overload, and I've also seen a lot of this holding of the skill point. And this is something you can always look to do on Storm Spirit. So notice what's going to happen here. He has the lane pushed in right now. He's got the lane pushed in, right? And what this means is that if you have more creeps than the opponent, and the opponent tries to fuck with your CS, or they try to be aggressive on you in any way, you can be very aggressive here and level your pull, as you're going to see Leshrax trying to get these denies. He even aggroes so that the Lesh would have to go further out of position to get these denies. And then when the Lesh walks up, he just goes for the harass rather than going for this creep. So he's kind of like set this up by holding the skill point, defensively aggroing so the Lesh has to walk further forward, and then if the Lesh walks forward, he levels that pull. I think this is something that can really teach you guys like how to use creep aggro, understanding the importance of holding skill points, like what that skill point would be used for. Some lanes you just can't be aggressive at all, and you don't level pull until like level 7 or 8. But in this case, I feel like I see it like either level like 3 or 4 or level 7 or 8. Because it kind of just depends. Do you have the chance to be aggressive? So that's just a nice little dominance assertion there.
You've just
Even pulls him into tower and body blocks him. That was a pretty cool play as well. I feel like his CSing hasn't been that fantastic so far, but this is going to be really cool. So he pulls him into tower, and then he body blocks him in the tower, making the Lesh take 2 tower shots. And that's really going to open up space for him. I think Storm Spirit, all of his aggression for the most part, is to kind of make the opponent fuck off. I think the issue I have with Storm after watching this already is that I don't do this early aggression enough, and I feel like the enemy mid ends up bullying me later. Because Storm Spirit's abilities, they're pretty much all point-blank range, which means if the opponent's a ranged hero and they're starting to get like level 4, 5, 6, they can be very aggressive on you, because Storm ends up just getting harassed down. So, notice how, now that he's level 4, he could probably do it earlier if he saw an opportunity, but he was being more aggressive in lane. Incorporating the small camp. That's a really important part of heroes like Storm. Very cheaply killing the camp, rotating back to lane, even bringing the lane creep with him. I think that's important to note. 2 birds with 1 stone there. Actually gets his rune yoinked. So this is like a nightmarish situation, I think, for most mids. What do you do when you get your rune yoinked? It looks like the answer is, in this case, die. I reckon he probably would have had to go back to base or get his teammate to fill his bottle. But in this case, he goes back in a body bag. So that's life. So he's maxing out the stat items. Looks like he was considering boots. Maybe that was like to make sure he didn't die before level 6. And then since he died, he's like, okay, no reason to buy boots anymore. I'm almost level 6. Trying to get XP for this range creep before he leaves. He wouldn't have made it in time to stack the small camp, so there was really nothing better for him to do right there. That's why I assume he stuck around. Body blocks the creep wave so that it's on his hill. Feels safer against Lesh, gets his level 6, immediately goes aggressive. I think this is the same thing as before, where by doing this, he's actually preventing Lesh from pushing his tower. Now, the second and third ball lightning in seems a bit nuts to me. More so that he's like pushing his limits. But now that I'm seeing it, he's walking back to the rune with like no resources, but he's getting the rune. So this is something I've been seeing a lot more recently, where mids know that the rune's coming out at 6 minutes, obviously. And so they, if possible, they'll make an aggressive move at like 5:30 just to kind of like establish control of the mid area. So even though it looks like he has no resources, he made the enemy mid less able to fight than he was, which means he's guaranteed the rune. Obviously in this case, he didn't get... What I mean by guaranteed the rune is the enemy mid is definitely not going to get it. And the only reason he didn't get the rune here is because at high MMR, the 4 position is always checking top rune. So he got a little unlucky there. So it seems pretty consistent. I've seen almost every Storm Spirit I've watched in my games go 3 null talismans. I'd say 2 at the very minimum. When I say everyone, I mean a lot of them would go 3 null talismans. I'd say bare minimum 2 in this case. It looked like he was going to go a 3rd, but... You know, as I talked about it, he decides to go for just straight treads. Looks like he emphasizes blocking the lane onto his hill a lot as Storm Spirit before the rune. He's actually done that both times now. I think that's really important to note. He's only done this right before the rune spawn, and what that's going to allow him to do is it's going to allow him to push the creep wave safely from on top of his own hill, rather than like in the river, which ensures that he's probably not going to get ganked, first and foremost. Secondly, he's going to be able to push the lane faster, which means he can go get the rune. And I think that's a combination of making sure he doesn't get ganked because he knows the rune's coming out, so maybe the opponent's going to make a move. But then he also makes it so he's more likely to get the rune. Very cool little move that I hadn't really noticed before on Storm Spirit players, or just like generally mid laners. Somehow doesn't get the rune again. I just want to note that even though he didn't get the rune here, the opponent's just straight up missing creeps. So what he's done leading up to the rune is still, like, good. It's still the proper play. You know, unfortunate that he's getting a little unlucky that the Lesh just checks the same rune as him and gets there. I don't want to say he got unlucky. It's like, in this case, he would have preferred the rune bottom because Lesh wouldn't get it. In the other case, he would have preferred it bottom and it went top. So, just kind of unlucky in that sense. Disruptor's also here. Opponent's committing a lot of resources to shutting him down. So you are invulnerable during Ball Lightning, so you see there that he utilizes that to Ball Lightning through the charge, and also Ball Lightning through the Necro Pulse. And I think this is the moment he's going to go back to base. Maybe farm 1 camp. On heroes like Storm, it's really important that you're always fight ready if possible, and you go back to base to be efficient. So if this case, notice how he got an Arcane Ring, he was also claritying up. So I thought he was going to go back to base because I underestimated how much mana he has because I'm just not a Storm Spirit player. But he's not fight ready. So what I see a lot of players do here, we're going to guess. Like, this is me making an educated guess. They're going to try to push the creep wave as fast as possible, have their entire focus be on creeps, and he's probably going to jungle his way back to base. You know, he's going to farm as much as he can with the remaining mana, and he's going to, like, dump it as fast as he can within reason, you know, not, like, inefficiently farming.
Radiant's middle tower is under
But that's with the acknowledgement that he just doesn't have enough mana to fight, right? So he walks and goes and picks up bounty runes, going to give him a little bit more mana to work with.
Dire's top tower is under
He's actually going to look to fight. Man, maybe I'm underestimating the mana regen on Storm. Ends up not turning into a fight. So this is what I mean. I feel like I would have dumped all my mana to go back to base and get mana. But in this case, he's prioritizing less farm in order to take part on the map. And it looks like he was anticipating that there's a lot of pressure on his lanes. Necro's a hero that constantly puts pressure on the carry. Leshrak's a hero that constantly puts pressure on the mid tower. So I'm assuming in this example, he doesn't feel like he can spend 30 seconds going back to base. That's like the conclusion I'm drawing, but obviously we're just kind of speculating here.
for Dire's middle tower.
He's going to run back to mid. 10-minute rune is up. He's actually got pretty much full mana after not farming. So based on what he's doing here, it seems like he kind of just has like a general sense of how much he needs to do in the game.
Thanks for playing Dota 2.
And now he's out of mana, most likely going to get Reapers. No, there is no Reapers. Pushing his limits pretty damn close there. And he's going to TP home. So this is a circumstance where I would have considered farming a camp, right? Because he had about 150 mana to work with, and he could have just like farmed a big camp. So I think the reason he decided to actually go to base here is a combination of the fact that Razor's where he was going to farm. But then also he has a bottled rune that he doesn't want to use. You know, he doesn't want to use that mana to like fill up. Maybe if he had like an illusion rune or something like that that's a little less powerful, then he would have jungled with the mana. But in this case, there's definitely something he can get done with this double damage. Storm Spirit, Arcane Rune, Haste Rune, double damage, Regen Rune. All pretty insane runes for the hero.
Dire have fortified their structures against attack for Dire's middle tower.
It was also catapult time, so he wanted to make sure he could defend mid. But since he was missing and the opponent probably knew he had a double damage, they just let him go. It's nice that he's playing with his Grimstroke. His Grimstroke enables him with the Ink Swell. I haven't really seen him leave mid, though. You know, he left mid occasionally looking for a gank, but when he's farming, when he's chilling, he's always mid, right?
Killing spree.
I think it's really important for Storm Sphere players to play around the runes as much as possible, because they pretty much dictate your decisions. I feel like you've got like a decision path where you're not really sure which direction you're going to turn in the dungeon here, but every time you get a rune, it tells you what you're going to do with it. In this case, once again, utilizing the Grimstroke Inkswell. I think it's a lot about the fact that he knows the Disruptor is not level 6 yet, and Disruptor's like the only response to him ball lightning in, right? It's like, if the Spirit Breaker charges him, if the Lesh tries to stun him, they don't have any instant disables. So he's like acknowledging, like, if I ball lightning in, what happens? And in this case, until Disruptor 6, they can't really instant stun him. So he's really been punishing this heavily. This late level 6 on the Disruptor. So he does end up buying a third Null Talisman. The question is, does he keep the wand or the Null Talismans? And he's actually selling the Null... He sells the wand at 13 minutes, so that answers your question. In the current patch, Null Talisman more than wand. I guess at least on Storm Spirit. Gets another really good rune. Disruptor used ultimate. That probably means it's time to go. Maybe in your pubs you don't have a Grimstroke, but you can likely ask a guy to play it, or you could ask any hero on your team to enable you. Good enablers for Storm are heroes like Grimstroke that make you do more damage, or heroes that give you mana like Coddle and Wisp. And despite dying there, he just doesn't seem afraid to go. I'd say when I have Storm Spirit teammates, my biggest complaint is when they don't have a pair of balls, and they just won't go. I like the lack of hesitation coming out from Miracle in these types of scenarios. Drew a lot of attention to himself, and ended up getting a beneficial trade despite dying. So for the first time, he's gone top. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, like, why did he not go mid again, right? So, like, let's rewind it a bit. You know, he's respawning. He sees a wave pushed in. His teammates are all around the mid lane. I think this is just an efficiency play. And then we have to see that his TP was on cooldown. But then the real question is if his TP was available, would he have walked top? I would gesture that he'd probably walk top, because he seems happy to fight the opponent. And so if you're happy to fight, you should never TP to farm, because that eliminates your ability to TP to help your team. So in this case, it's not a perfect example because he doesn't have a TP, but the fact that he walks his way top, if a fight were to happen mid, he could TP to it. Which is important as any hero like Storm that wants to constantly be farming, but also needs to be ready to fight as often as possible. Please don't be that Storm Spirit that TPs to your tier 2, your team gets dove mid, and say, I don't have a TP. Don't be that guy, guys.
Should look to their bottom tower.
So notice how he's like monitoring mid. He's ready to go back for the rune at 16. I think he feels pretty safe because Disruptor was dead at the time.
Stupendous!
You can tell he's like always ready to fight mid. The way he's playing. He's constantly monitoring it. He has enough mana to go there. They scanned because the enemy team was missing. And he knew they were probably smoked. The second he saw one of them, he instantly ran away. You can kind of tell his game sense is just like, I know I want to fight or not. So the enemy team smoked top. In this case, the beauty of Storm is how mobile he is on the map. So the enemy team showed top. And that means he could kill the guy mid. These are openings you always have to look for on heroes like Storm. See how the opponent shows 3 or 4 heroes top? This guy is not allowed to be here. Storm Spirit is the biggest punisher of heroes that are alone. So whenever the opponent presents themselves to be somewhere else, kill the guy that's being a noob. You know what I mean? That guy's being a noob. So we're going to go back. I think you can ult dodge Glimpse, but I'm starting to doubt it because Miracle didn't there. Does manage to escape the Disruptor ulti though, so that's fortunate. There's really no other item that he can buy than BKB in order to fight the opponent, because we already talked about what's preventing him from like freely ball lightning into the fight, and that's the Disruptor Static Storm. And the only item he can deal with that with is BKB. So this is something I also want to point out about heroes like Storm. You want to make sure you don't get bursted. This hero's like a feast or famine hero. You usually die full to 0, or you manage to survive the fight. So notice how he goes in, but then he like resets to like within his team, you know? Don't let some Disruptor ult you from over here, you know, or like from over here. Don't let the opponent like randomly lock you down when you don't see where they are. Because notice if you look at the map, he doesn't see anybody when he went in. So that little reset ball lightning just makes him much less likely to get caught. Once again, he sees another lone guy top, but it's a lifestealer, so that's probably not happening. Actually going to invade the opponent's farm because they have some nice wards around this area. Doesn't show himself on the tower. Doesn't let the opponent see him before he sees them. Storm's definitely all about vision. Seeing the opponent before they see you. Disruptor bot back. He's actually likely going to go down here.
Killing spree.
Gets healed up by the Lesh.
Hello, this is Gabe.
Unfortunate.
Mega for playing Dota 2. Double kill.
But he's almost got his BKB. Game will be much easier to play after he has it, because the way he died was Yule's Lesh into Disruptor Static Storm. I think what makes Storm so broken right now is that you have enough mana to farm and do a lot of damage with these items and a BKB. Like, in the past, it felt like if you really wanted to farm, you would have to go Bloodstone. That was like the only way you'd have enough mana. You had to like choose between being survivable or farming. Or like fighting, you know? You couldn't do it all. But, you know, some games you can probably just go Sanj and Kaya. Orchid's probably still a consideration. But, like, the fact that you can have these items and a BKB and still have enough mana to work with, that just means the hero can do everything in the current patch. Really nice old dodge of the Spearbreaker charge. Doesn't quite get the kill on Lifestealer, though. So it seems like he's willing to go for pickoffs when the opponents split up without the BKB, but the second the opponent responds, he's like, okay, back to farming, gotta finish this item. Is he gonna fight again?
Killing spree. Double kill. They're unstoppable.
Okay, Disruptor Static Storm's down. Being really conservative with his mana.
I double wicked sick. Monster kill.
I like how conservative he was with his mana there. Because Disruptor was dead, he just had to make sure he didn't, like, run out of mana and die to Lifestealer right-clicks. Which, you saw that, like, he didn't mind... He kind of, like, poked and prodded, right? He didn't, like, ever commit there.
Gold is a great conductor.
And that's probably what makes these items work, right? Because if you use Ball Lightning too much, you'll just run out of mana. So, notice how he's using all of his mana, not caring about being ready to fight. He just wants to farm as fast as possible to finish his item. Being very conservative with his positioning while farming there. You notice how he's consistently backing off. Gets a haste rune. Now he's got like a really nice timing. Does he like go back to base and reset his mana? What's his thought here? I never know exactly what to do here. Nope, he flies himself a clarity, pops the runes such that he has enough mana. Puts his null talismans back in his inventory. It's almost the 25-minute mark where those nulls go way up in value. Immediately hunts for a kill. Okay. And it doesn't work. And he's gonna feed. So, I mean, that just kind of looks like a new play. I don't have much else to say. Looks like he thought he was strong enough to fight. Did less damage than he anticipated. Had a pretty big kill on his timing. Happens to the best of us, Miracle, I understand. I like the no fear, though. I don't really know how else you learn this hero, other than having no fear. I feel like it's pretty impossible to calculate the limits of this hero. Like, you can't calculate them, you kind of just have to roll with them, you know? So I'm down. I probably don't have big enough balls to play this hero. I feel like when you watch Noob Storm Spirits, they die, like, with all their mana still because they haven't used it. Or they're, like, full health with no mana because they just ball lightning too much. He's definitely pushing his limits properly, which you notice, you know, he's kind of, like, committing equal amounts of health and mana to, like, trading and poking and shit. But, obviously, it doesn't mean he knows his limits perfectly. Okay, they got a nice ward. Who's he gonna jump? Target selection. Probably the Disruptor, right? Because that means he doesn't have to pop BKB at the start. Yep, so he doesn't have to pop BKB because he got the Disruptor. Being able to conserve his BKB is really nice. So if you ever buy BKB and you can jump the guy that makes you cast BKB, look how long he was allowed to hold on to that. You know, if he jumps anyone else, he's going to have to BKB right at the start of the fight. So that's really smart targeting by him. Something you guys can definitely learn from. I don't get the chance to talk about teamfight targeting too much. Knowing exactly why you bought the BKB lets you make your decisions. Because, like, some games, if you're against, like, a Lion and you go in, unless it's on Lion, you just have to pop BKB preemptively. But the nice thing about playing Storm against a hero like Disruptor is, if the Disruptor casts Static Storm, you can just react. You know, you can just push BKB afterwards. Of course, if he has an Ags, we're talking a different story here. But this video is brought to you guys by Skillshare, an online learning community with thousands of classes for creators. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in your own creativity. This month, I decided to watch a course on how to be happier. A Stoicism Masterclass. It's created by a Cambridge University graduate, Dr. Ali Abdal, along with his colleague, Sam Ahmed. In this course, they talk about the 5 pillars of Stoicism. 1, the dichotomy of control. The impact you have on a game compared to the impact your teammates have on a game. 2, premeditating adversity. What's going to happen to me at the end of this game if I were to lose? Voluntary discomfort, being willing to go outside of your comfort zone, playing unfamiliar heroes, and being able and willing to make mistakes. 4. A view from above. It's more so not about the bad teammates we get, but our constant concern of whether or not we're going to get that bad teammate. And last but not least, journaling. Just like you look at the in-game stats of a Dota screen to see how you felt about that game, why not see the in-game stats of your day? Now, this course and many more can be applied to how we think as Dota players. And if you're one of the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description, you'll get a free 1-month premium trial membership. Don't miss this opportunity to explore your creativity. So I'd like to quickly note what he does here. I'm going to rewind. So they're going to win a fight, right? They win a fight, they get Aegis. He's going to quickly go push the dead lane, right? He's going to go push the dead lane 1 or 2 creep waves. And then he's going to immediately connect back to his team. There's 2 issues I see with mid players in general, because this is often the mid player's job. This isn't just a Storm Spirit thing. Is they either don't do this. I would say especially lower MMR people don't do this part. And what that leads to is that this lane's constantly pushed into your tower. And it's also just like 500 gold that you're not getting. You know, it's a pretty good amount of gold. He's going to kill 2 creep waves most likely. And this catapult. And what happens here is that he has BKB on cooldown. And he's almost to a finished item. So this is like the perfect telltale, like, oh, we just want to fight. Enemy team's dead. When enemy team's dead, we have 2 choices. Run the fuck and kill more, like go run at them again, or quickly clear waves and run back to our team. So the issue that low MMR players have is that they'll take this opportunity to continue chasing for kills. So what I see a lot of like high MMR greedy players do is that they'll do this, right? They'll clear that camp, they'll TP back for the efficiency, they'll kill this creep wave, but then they'll keep going. Okay? That's like the biggest part. Is I would say when you TP away from your team like this, you want to be back to your team whenever your hero is ready to fight again. Like as close to that window as possible is so important. So he just finished his Sanjin Kaya, like it's going to be flying out to him on the courier, and his BKB's 14 seconds off cooldown, right? And the opponent's all respawning. So this is like the perfect recipe to be like, if he keeps going, he's going to be fight ready, and his team might be stuck taking a fight without him. So that's like really important that you guys see this efficiency move, clear 2 creep waves, and then connect back to your team when you're fight ready again. Very cleanly done by him. It's very important on any active hero in the game. So he ends up seeing that no fight happens, so he decides to farm 1 camp, and he's like, oh shit, fight happening, go, 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 fight happening, go, go, go. Ends up ball lightning across the map. That 1 camp might have even been too greedy. Gets to hold on to his BKB because he's more tanky now, and the Necro's busy, so he's not afraid of getting bursted. And this is just perfect map play, I would say. Is he going to overcommit again? Nope. He actually made the enemy team hit him for so long. Wonder why the Razor took Aegis. Wonder if that was explicit, but I think Storm Spirit's like top 3 Aegis carriers in the entire game. Okay, so the fight doesn't quite work out. Almost got caught there. If Lush had Yules, he could have killed him, but maybe he wasn't ready to find the storm. Sanjin Kaya just seems kind of like a broken item right now. It gives you mana, makes you more survivable, allows him to hold on to his BKB a bit longer. And that's going to be a dead Lush on the rune, or on the Vision, I mean. Oh no, it's actually a dead Storm Spirit. To be fair, I thought he was going to kill him too. He didn't see the Spear Breaker in time, I guess. Wasn't ready to dodge the charge. I was awfully close. I can respect the decision to go for that. Okay, so he's going to be dead for a while. A little bit of 3-2-2 action coming out.
Dire's bottom tower is no more.
Surprised he isn't carrying detection. I guess null talismans are just that good. 8% mana reduction is a lot. Past the 25-minute mark. Okay. Lesh actually preemptively yules himself. Okay. I think the biggest thing I have, I'm gonna rage a little bit about the Storm Spirits in my games. When you guys see somebody on a ward and your team's like kind of close, just go. You have so much slow, so much control. Make the opponent BKB to defend themselves. Poke and prod. Your team doesn't have to necessarily keep up with you. It's like, unless you're against like an anti-mage that's gonna kill you. But in this case, he's not really afraid of dying. He's just got to make sure he doesn't blow all of his mana. But every time he sees somebody on a ward, he instantly jumps them. He's constantly flying himself clarities. That's really important to note. Burns all of his mana to clear top wave and 3 camps, and immediately resets. So in this case, instead of resetting on his own cooldown, he's actually resetting on the respawn of his support. Notice how he's now ready to fight when his ogre was alive. So it looks like the concern here is Roche. I think the biggest note here for all Stormspear players is how he makes it so that he's ready to fight as often as possible. I think there's probably been like a minute and a half this entire game where he's not ready to fight. And it's because he's like trying to finish an item, or he doesn't feel comfortable fighting because of, doesn't have the item. Okay. So now they're just waiting in Roche. I'll let you guys in on a little secret. 90% of what matters past like 25 minutes is Roshan. That's definitely escaped pretty much any low MMR player, especially when you're playing Stormspear because he's such a good Aegis carrier. Buys a lot of time for his team. Actually took three of the 5 heroes from the opponent, and they didn't kill him or anything, so that isolates the Necro as well as the Disruptor. You can see how much chaos he creates by just going in. He just goes in, forces the enemy team to collapse on him here. Notice how he's getting 3 heroes. And this happens a lot. People are going to be a little bit clumsy with their positioning, a little bit separated. And because he just goes, he forces 3 heroes on him so his team can just kill everybody else, right? So that's really nice. Pops his BKB to live, and towards the end of his BKB, he's going to reset. Stayed there as long as possible. Now what's he do that his BKB is down? He's very patient, goes back in to get the lifestealer, walks to the edge. Really good limit pressing here.
Killing spree.
Really abusing the terrain, right? He's really abusing, like he went from here to here and then to over here. It's like the ball lightning is only this far, but the opponent would have to walk like this. And then he goes back in, and then he walks to here and goes across the cliff. So he's like making absolute, like he's using absolute maximum efficiency on distance effectively traveled by his ball lightning, which is that's really cool. You just get more out of the mana you have, right? So he goes Lincoln's. The only times he's really died is when he gets Spearbreaker charged, right? And it catches him off guard during his BKB or whatever, and then gets stun locked. So it seems first and foremost his concern is being alive. Like, none of these items kill opponents, right? He's basically saying my kit, like my abilities alone, will kill heroes. I just have to make sure I live. And I think that speaks a lot about the enemy lineup. It's like very burst-heavy lineup, like Spearbreaker Infested, and Disruptor's got 1 volley of spells, and if he doesn't kill you in the ultimate, he's kind of useless. Same with Necro, right? So it makes sense that he's itemizing purely to live here. It always resets right at the end of his BKB. Fight's still going. He lingers like right on the outside of it, just in case there's a chance to re-enter. He did this last fight too. Just walking around the ward he has, always playing on vision, making sure he can see the opponent. And maximum debate going on here. Is he gonna actually go down though?
Killing spree.
Dude, he is debating so hard.
Dominating performance.
Dude.
Mega kill. Hello, this is
We
Gabe
know
Newell.
what this guy does right before bed, my friends. He is baiting the opponent so hard. goes on the Lush again, just walks away, makes them turn, then just right when the Lush queues up the stun, he falls away. Then he's like walking around this Necro, so Lifestealer walks up again, and then...
I guess.
Oh man, it's just beautiful. And he's just right-clicking.
Mega kill. Double kill.
Wow. What a masterful bait.
Let the fun begin.
Masterful. Stays on the map again. Every team fight that ends with a win, he TPs back to base, clears a creep wave, and then goes back to his team. In this case, he gets a fortuitous regen rune. Age is going again to the Razor. This is his first regen rune in the game, I think.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
So his team does lack a bit of AoE control. He's really the only AoE stun on his team if he goes Ags, so it looks like that's why he's probably queuing up the Ags. A little bit of team fight action. Does the opponent have any, like, Lincoln Spheres?
Radiant's bottom tower.
They also have a Lincolns on Lifestealer, so the Ags makes it so it doesn't get blocked by Lincolns anymore.
Glorious things.
That might have been a consideration of his. Note he still has the Fairy Trinket
Touche.
at 38 minutes into the game.
I'm over here.
He's finally selling the Null Talismans. 38 minutes in. So he only sells the Nulls when he gets massive freaking items, you know? Full Lincoln Sphere, full Ags.
But I'm worth so much.
Fairy's Trinket is finally worth replacing for a Spell Prism. I assume Timeless Relic would be good enough.
I've been
Forcing out another TP, no big deal. Arcane Rune. Going to immediately TP back to base and look for more. Notice how he TP'd back to Fountain because he was looking for a kill, not TPing back to farm. Kills the creep wave and goes right back. So this is an important part of the game. Most often during this stage in the game, the opponent's going to be pressuring this lane, and your team's going to be pressuring this lane. That's pretty much what it always looks like, at least at Immortal Bracket. I don't know if this is how it always is at yours. No offense, guys. So notice how he's been making sure he relieves pressure on his own base. And the reason why it's really important if you can do that on Storm is just because the more mobile your hero is, the quicker you can, like, reconnect to your team, the quicker you can go places, right? So going away from your team briefly and then coming back to them is really important. So in this case, the enemy team's all missing. So rather than doing his normal, like, TP back to base and farm, which was when he won team fights, he's doing the whole dangerous ball lightning, clear the creep wave, and immediately go back to base thing. And I assume he'll either clear one more wave or connect to his team. You know, just like before. That's exactly what he's going to do. Connect to his team. Looking for a good fight. Bought himself an extra 30 seconds top, though, right? Top lane would already be, like, hitting his barracks right now. So that'll open up his team to push high ground. Gets the initiation again. Uses the BKB, focusing the Disruptor. Always walks away to reset during his BKB. Lincoln Sphere allows him to not get glimpsed.
They're unstoppable.
Oop, and he's dead. I feel like this game would be easier if he just had an Aegis. But
I guess. I'd say wicked.
it seems like every fight, he's made the opponent commit so many resources to actually kill him that when he does inevitably die, his team just cleans up afterwards. So I think the game's over and done at this point. I learned a lot about Storm Spirit. How do you guys? That was very interesting. Could I do it myself? Probably not without a lot of practice. But I hope you guys learned some valuable lessons about how to approach certain parts of the game as Storm Spirit, especially in 7.31. Thanks for watching, guys. This was Miracle playing Storm.